Bienvenue à tous, bienvenue pour tous ceux qui étaient là ce matin. Merci de nous avoir rejoints et bienvenue à tous les autres. Bienvenue aussi à tous ceux qui nous suivent en stream.
So thank you and welcome back to those who are following us on the streaming since this morning. You know that all of the day's sessions will be available on replay. And this way, we can continue the dialogue. This afternoon with session 3, we're going to accelerate the competence of the media with regards to the climate challenge. You know that part of the speakers are here for the afternoon, and we're going to begin with someone who's very, very committed, the first godmother of the International Forum on Climate and Meteorology, Evelyne DHÉLIAT. Evelyne DHÉLIAT, can you join us here, please? Thank you very much for having accepted to be here and to be our first witness in this session. Well, good afternoon. I'm very proud to be here. So it's been 20 years that you've been doing weather on television. I'm sure it wasn't easy 20 years ago. Yes, not at all. 20 years ago, in fact, this forum was one of the first forums dealing with meteorology, where we had scientists with us, Jean Jouzel, of course, who started talking to us about the fact that we're seeing some strange things occurring, looking at temperature curves, which all of a sudden, since the 1980s, have exploded. And with the CO2, we see that things are happening as well. And this is how this desire to communicate and do something on the subject arose. I could feel the difficulty that existed between the information they had available. We did not hear people say at the time that climate change was here indeed. But how to communicate with the public at large? And I said, well, you know, I have more than 1 million audience every night. And so this is how it started, with some of the information we will talk about after. It was 2014, almost 10 years ago. Things have happened since then. You are at prime time with your weather bulletin. In fact, it was right before the COP21, which was going to be held in Paris a couple months later. And so the World Meteorological Organization had asked that one weather forecaster in each country present a weather bulletin, and especially in case of a heat wave. So I worked with Météo France, which is constantly making forecasts on the temperatures that are going to occur. So here you can see what was happening. You know, we were already speaking about the melting of the ice sea in the Antarctica, and at the time with Météo France, I was already speaking about this. And I asked Météo France, are you making forecasts? I said, can you produce the same map with the same lines and with the temperatures that you believe we will have in August 2050 if there is a heat wave? Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. 8 years ago, in 2022, I presented an anticipatory weather bulletin showing what the temperature would be in August 2050 in case of a heat wave. And here it is. And at the time, you see the map was produced by specialists, weather forecasters from the Météo France climatology department, and they work on climate evolution. So these were the forecasts for 2050. August 2050, the forecasts have not changed once again. You see temperatures which are above 40 degrees, and in case of a severe heat wave, up to 48 degrees. Now, without having a catastrophic approach to this, look at the changes that have occurred in the two maps. So you see the temperatures go from 40 to 45 and 41 to 48. It's in the northwest that we see a difference of 10 degrees. It might seem excessive, but remember what happened last July, 18th of July 2022, 39.7 degrees in La Rochelle, without discussing the weather in the summer of 2019. We see 42.8 degrees in Paris on the 25th of January. And all of these examples from the past show us that the global warming is accelerating and there is a real need to act on behalf of our planet. So that was the weather bulletin. What has changed? What has evolved between 2014 and today in this weather bulletin and the way the media deals with these issues? Well, in the media coverage, we have the information coming from Météo France. We see the evolution in temperatures, and we see that the climate change is accelerating. So today we have significant possibilities. And this, with the changing years, we have the ability to talk and inform the spectators. Obviously, the information is good for the planet, but for some time now, we've seen an acceleration in climate change, and we have seen that the media, and we're not trying to be catastrophic here, the media is trying to be informative. And so here we have information on our planet, information we are disseminating in the weather bulletin. These are data we give you. We work with the French environmental agency, ADEME, to work and give concrete information, and we work with the climatologists of the French Meteorological Service. Now, if it's hot, it's because we're in the south. But the climatologists say that with climate warming, the air mass is hotter and hotter. And today, on a national basis, it has never been as hot in the month of October. Orthez, 35.7 degrees this afternoon. So, in fact, you recall the information after each weather bulletin? We do this several times a year. Several times a week. And our colleagues in the different countries also see the information is changing. And, you know, a few years ago, we spoke of a decade record, a day record. But there are no longer any absolute records. Now, we can say that every month included, it has never been as warm. You know, a weather bulletin is short. But you have longer possibilities with news reports, and at the TF1 channel during the midday and evening presentations, there are information about the planet. You know that recently with the drought, there are problems for young trees which do not have deep enough roots and which are dying. So today, thanks to the new techniques, thanks to the data, we have the possibility of explaining what is happening and what could happen. And this using extraordinary techniques. And we will show you an example, in fact. Here you have Yannick Reza, who works with us as journalist specialized in augmented reality, And next week, we are going to film another sequence on CO2 and COT gas emissions since the beginning of industrialization. This is another subject, and this concerns water and water issues all over the planet. So, okay, we're going to see an extract from this news report. It is augmented reality. And so we filmed what will happen in France. We have all learned this scheme at school, the water cycle. Water evaporates, goes in the sky, and then is going to come back to Earth in the form of rain, snow, etc. But the global warming that we are experiencing disturbs the cycle at all levels. To understand this, let's look at the North Pole and in the Arctic. Here, the temperature increases 6 times faster than on the rest of the planet because here it is snowing less and less often. It rains, and so the water which normally should have been stored here in the form of gas or snow is in fact melting. And the water in the glaciers is melting at a speed that is much too fast today. The result is that all of this water is released into the ocean too rapidly, which leads to an increase in sea level. It has already increased by 20 centimeters in 1 century, and it could increase by, in fact, 2 meters, about 2 meters in 2100. Here in Saint-Malo, the increase in the sea level could submerge a whole number of cities on the coast. So there is water, but there's also the desert. What's going to happen in a desert area? Then a sequence on what happens in temperate climate like France. This is quite extraordinary that you broadcast this at 8 o'clock. 8 p.m. Well, it has a great deal of success, this weather bulletin. People give us feedback saying they understand, you explain things well. And we also have our weather forecasters present on live as well. What's remarkable too is the pictures that you show with the augmented reality. You know that with the question of investment, time, etc. I mean, you know, how important it is to continue to inform the public. Well, we don't do these bulletins every day because you have to have material to deal with. You know, and what we look for is important. And so this implies a certain amount of money, of course. These sequences call for a large budget in terms of investment, but in terms of time and work. We film in a Paris studio. For the film on water, we went into a field to explain the water cycle and what will happen. Then we added the augmented reality to give further information. So the people at TF1, the editorial team, how do you see the subject evolving over time? Do you think that this has created greater awareness? Yes, I think so. You know that we are in contact with experts who work with us, who are with us. And we have trained a whole team of specialists in different sectors, and they are in contact with the editorial team, with the journalists, to give us all that information. And that's really important because next week at TF1 channel, we are going to, in fact, look at how we can anticipate and speak of the problems of global warming. It's going to work like a sort of expert committee. We have an expert committee which is going to grow. We're going to have another 4 or 5 experts who are going to join us. So it's really interesting. It's interesting for us, but also for the TV audience, because this is a way of popularizing what the experts are bringing to us in terms of information. So there is no report where people are eating ice cream, etc. Well, this is a news report, and obviously what one person likes isn't necessarily what someone else likes. So when I announced 33 degrees in the southwest, which is not at all normal in a month of October, where we could have real record figures again, because we already had the hottest September ever. So what's important, of course, is not to frighten the TV audience. We don't want to, in fact, terrify them. But when we did the subject on the trees, yes, that was interesting. And of course, we like ice creams. And, a weekend like we're going to live, it's good for tourism, of course, but for agriculture, for animal husbandry and things like that, it's horrible. It's very, very bad. And I don't simply say the weather is nice, sun and not rain, but good weather, as we experienced during the heat wave this summer in France and elsewhere. Well, nice weather for the tourists and others. Well, nice weather, quote unquote, but it was not nice weather for animal husbandry and agricultural activities. What's important too is the social media networks. You have so much information to share that the daily weather bulletin was not enough for sharing information. Shall we look at an example of this? Yes, indeed, it's hotter and hotter. It's not an impression. Look at the figures here. This is the average of temperatures each year in France. So these pictures are on Twitter. I have a Twitter account, and given that I've been doing weather presentations for a few decades, so I saw, in fact, the birth on the social media network, information concerning weather and weather shows. People need to see the weather bulletin. It's an exchange. And there's so many things going on, and sometimes it's not the same thing. And, with the social media network, you can extrapolate, the bulletins last 2-3 minutes. And so I receive a large quantity of data every day from the French Meteorological Services. And it was a shame, a bit frustrating not to be able to show this information. But thanks to the Twitter account, we can, with Kenny, do this information on the social media network. It's also available on TF1's social media. I know that not too long ago there was an article in the newspaper Le Monde speaking of bashing. Well, this subject was something we wanted to bring out on the 31st of July. And, people were cold, and so they were saying, well, you talk of climate change, but we're freezing here. Well, it was a very short event, because after that, we had the heat wave. I must say that I don't pay attention to this, Go prove to me that 2 and 2 is not 4. It's not possible. And I think that as far as climate change is concerned, we can no longer deny it. And the scientists now say that it is proven that climate change is in progress. So information is very important. To perhaps make a transition here with Valérie Martin, who is from the French Environmental Agency, the ADEME. When I started working, ADEME gave me a great deal of information. When I started the program, It's Good for the Planet, the ADEME called me and asked me what I was doing. And they told me, well, we are going to launch a campaign called Yes, Things Are Heating Up. Since then, we have continued to work together at ADEME because information is precious and they are a source of information. Thank you very much. We're very happy to have you with us this afternoon. If you want to intervene at any moment, don't hesitate.